excuse me. What up, roomies? Tonight's guest believes one of the biggest problems in healthcare isn't that people aren't trying to get better, it's that we're often asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking how do we treat the symptom, he's asking why is it happening in the first place? Tonight we're diving into chronic illness, inflammation, Lyme disease, hormones, gut health, chiropractic myths, holistic health, and whether modern medicine and functional approaches can work together instead of against each other. Whether you're perfectly healthy, dealing with chronic symptoms, or just trying to understand your body, this conversation is going to challenge the way you think. Roomies, welcome Dr. Brad Montana.
Well, thanks for
Montagne.
the invite.
Thank you for accepting and being on. I've checked out a couple of your other clips, and you're like the way you speak about chronic illness and other topics is fascinating, and I would love to pick your brain about a couple of things.
I'm here. You can pick away.
All right, so let's let's start with this one, right? Uh, it feels everybody knows somebody dealing with a chronic illness. Are more people actually getting sick, or is it just that we're diagnosing it more nowadays?
Um, well, it's not either one.
Mm,
Okay. When you look at the diagnosing part,
yeah.
there's no doctor school that produces a doctor who helps people with health issues. There's no doctor school that teaches anything about chronic illness. They all teach about acute stuff. And the lab tests, those were set up by John Rockefeller after him and Carnegie bought a whole bunch of shares in Moderna and Pfizer, the pharmaceutical industry. They
Mhm.
wanted to change the entire medical industry. So they set up some schools, sent a guy out who was an educator to go audit all of the schools. Took them 5 years to go through all of North America. They came back with a scathing rebuke. Half of them should be closed. They needed to change their agenda. Amazingly, by these two universities that
Yeah.
Rockefeller set up, and it took them about 10 years. They transformed everything. One of their first graduates, he's the one, I think his last name was Wells. He set up John
Mm.
Hopkins University. And within 5 years of him setting that up, every medical school in all of North America ran the same curriculum that he set up.
Yeah.
And John Hopkins was one of his students. And those tests can't tell you what cause are. They can only identify symptoms.
So, and just going back to what you said about that, there's no good like healthcare provider, right?
No,
What?
no, I didn't say there's not a good health care provider. I said there's no school that
Oh,
teaches any of the graduates, the doctors that people go
yeah.
see. There's no school that teaches chronic illness.
So, why you think is that? Is it just like I know that you mentioned Rockefeller and Carnegie. So, is it more that the pharmaceutical company, and which is this is actually pretty much true, is just more of a money grab where we're just cure treating the symptom versus understanding the underlying causes of everything.
That's what I just said, and you put it in
Yeah.
a different set of words. But the pharmaceutical industry, they subsidize medical institutions. So the doctors don't have to pay so much. They get paid an insane amount of money for whatever they do. But the whole issue of their education is to become dispensers of drugs. And drugs disrupt biochemical pathways where natural substances heal biochemical pathways. You can't use drugs to restore health. Can't. So why would they study things that they can't do? They only study how to minimize symptoms instead of
Okay.
actually find out what we call root cause of the problem really is.
So, in your opinion, when you're trying to find the root cause of illness, like what what are like the steps that somebody should go through, or like or somebody that's trying to analyze, like let's say a chronic illness, what steps should you like kind of look at and kind of like dive into in order to cure the whole thing from the root instead of just treating the symptom?
Real simple. When I was 19, I got
Yeah,
hurt at work and I couldn't function at all. Was told to stay home, lay on a couch and a heating pad for a couple of weeks. That didn't work at all. And I decided to go through a multiphasics physical. It's like a 2 or 3 day
yeah,
physical to try and figure out what's going on. I'm like 19.
yeah,
There wasn't anybody else on there. Those under their 50s, most were 70 and plus, and they're running through all these things that they do that wouldn't tell a single thing about what's going on with me. And I bailed out of there and I go, this makes no sense. I went and looked up a chiropractor, was able to throw my back brace away and keep working.
there you
And
go.
that was pretty huge because I found somebody who understood what the problem is. When you look at chronic illness, it's a reflection. We set the stage by the way we live, what
Yeah,
we eat, our habits, the way we interact, all these different things. There's something called epigenetics, where every gene in the body has 30,000 different ways it can express itself.
Ooh,
And it's the
okay,
way we live that determines expression. So you can
yeah,
have good genes and a bad lifestyle, and you get all the bad expression. You can have bad genes and good lifestyle, you get all the good expressions. It's that dramatic.
no,
It,
but it makes sense though.
right.
Yeah.
And there's no lab work that will tell you that.
Right. So how would somebody kind of like know where they're at? I- How would somebody know how their genes are acting?
How would somebody know how?
Their genes are acting like, how do you know if like you're getting the best out of all 30,000 expressions that your genes could possibly have?
If you go to a normal, quote, normal doc that does their
Yeah,
diagnosis off a lab test, and that's how all medical diagnoses are. You
yeah,
can't use any other system to make a medical diagnosis. But those will never answer questions like that.
yeah,
Like it's really common with people who think they got detox problems to go get a genetic testing of their methyl methylation SNP
yeah,
in their genes. We've seen all kinds of people for decades with that SNP where it says they can't produce the active form of methyl
yeah,
of folate, L5 methylfolate, and it said they can't produce it genetically. But when we heal them up, they start producing it and they don't need it supplemented anymore.
oh, I got you, I got
So
you.
there's not a test to do that. You can, I use a whole different system of testing. I use
Okay.
bioenergetics. And
uh,
bioenergetics, if we're the basic building block of everything physical is atoms. And
yeah,
atoms, they got primarily three parts: a neutron, proton, and electrons do the orbitals. But isotopes, those electrons become positrons, and the
yeah,
protons in the nucleus becomes neutrons, and it's kind of wild on what goes on. But
yeah.
the building block of atoms is called a quark. A quark is
Oh,
electromagnetic spin of light. If that was from a natural source, if you put anything matter into
yeah,
total darkness, it disappear. It ceased to exist, but it doesn't. So it lets you know that that source, electromagnetic source of light makes up the quarks is not natural. It's a God thing, and it's
okay.
one of the easiest proofs that there is because nothing could work. But we're lied to about so many things. In school, you're taught that you look at an atom and the nucleus is like the sun, and all
Yeah,
of the orbitals are like planets in these big
yeah.
orbitals. That's not how it works. Not how it
Okay.
works at all. And what an atom really is, it's electromagnetic pump. As the orbitals move around, that electromagnetic pull moves back and forth
Yeah.
across the nucleus, creating electromagnetic pump. Bioenergetics is measuring the body's response to those electromagnetic pumps. And when you have weak electromagnetic pumps, the muscle systems get weak, the nerve reflexes get weak, the currents, electrical currents that the nerves make in the tissues when they work, those become really, really weak. So bioenergetics is measuring those, and you can use those to test all the different functions of every organ in every minute thing that goes on.
Okay.
So, and you can also test those for therapeutic intervention to see what will strengthen them.
So
And
so when you're going through the therapeutics to strengthen your um what your bioelectricity, correct? Or bioenergy,
bioenergetics
your bio,
is
to increase your bioenergetics in your atoms. Is there like anything super specific in order for somebody to do that? Like, do they have to change the way they eat? You know, maybe a change of environment, more exercising, like
okay.
getting more active.
Everything that you can think about in life, and you just named off a bunch of them, affects that genetic expression. Your
Okay.
belief systems, your relationships, how well you interact in your relationships, how mutual they actually are, everything that you eat. What we eat, I'm almost finished putting together a nutritional program, and my approach to that's nothing like anything I've ever seen. And I only got 40 years of studying nutrition, so I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, I've really seen a lot, but I've put 40 years of working clinically with the sickest of the sick people. And this is what I've found over the course of 40 years on what people really need to really start to bring their health around. Food is building blocks, and all those building blocks have certain attributes that we need. They have certain jobs that they're supposed to accomplish inside of
Mhm.
us. They're supposed they give us nutrients, but the most thing we take out of them, believe it or not, is electrons from that electromagnetic pump, and
Okay.
that's what fuels all of our energy. That's the
Okay.
primary thing. The end stage of digestion is to steal electrons out of what you absorb out of your food.
Okay. And is there like when it comes to like plant based versus versus meat, is there any specific one that gives you more electrons than the other, or or it all depends on the individual?
Okay, I just finished doing a podcast on carnivore diet.
Ooh, how was that?
It's eye opening. It's really eye opening, but meat doesn't carry a lot of the nutrients that you need to fuel your body. It's, they like carnivore, they like high fat and meat. And if you have a high fat meat, it was grown in a feedlot somewhere. It's food in a feedlot's the most toxic food you can feed any kind of animal. As soon as you put an animal on a grain fed diet, in 7 days, there's a 1,000-fold increase in pathogens growing inside of the gut. We got all these microbes that grow inside the gut that do our digestion.
Yeah.
And when those become pathogenic, all they do is they produce toxins, and they don't break food down the way that we have. So we're eating, and all those toxins store in the animal's fat. Fat
Okay.
makes about 22, 24 hormones, something like that. Those hormones are super angry when they're on a fat diet. So you eat something that's primarily meat, fatty meat especially, is full of all kinds of toxins. The food has herbicides in it, mostly atrazine and Roundup. Atrazine's 10 times worse than Roundup. That breaks down the one of the primary chemical pathways that the microbes in the gut use to live and ferment things. It's also that same pathway is the key pathway for us to detoxify our bodies. It's also the same pathway we use to absorb our nutrients. So when we start eating things with those herbicides in it, it really wipes us out. And that food is super, super toxic. There's almost no minerals in the meat. Whenever you eat too much protein, it makes the body acidic. And if you get the pH off just a small little about 6.8 to 7.2 is normal. You get it off of that, and all the cell functions fall off a cliff. So when you're eating primarily meat, you're very acidic, and there's not one cell function that works right. Not one. You get no minerals in meat, so you don't have any of the minerals to fuel all the functions inside of you. Calcium's the top mineral in all life forms that we need. And that's what balances pH. You don't get that out of meat. You don't get potassium and sodium to make your electrical currents in meat. You don't get the healthy oils in meat. Well, all our cell membranes are 95% oils. And you just don't have healthy oils in meat to make healthy cell membranes. They're rigid, more like a tennis racket,
Yeah.
to bounce a ball off, rather
Yeah.
than something that's smooth that nutrients can slip through and waste products can slip back out. You don't have anything. The when you don't eat carbs, you make your energy a different way. And when the primary source of those calories is protein, that dysregulates our blood sugar, predisposes us to diabetes. With the adrenal response, with that, dysregulates our hormones, and you start to lose sexual expression, sexual function, sexual abilities, the volume in sexual tissues. I mean, you've got all of these things that happen really, really quick. It's an insane diet. It just does not feed the body pretty much anything that it needs.
No, I get that. I get that. So just ooh, that's crazy because it's like you'll see like some people get like good results out of it, but I've never seen it being done in like longevity before.
Right.
Yeah.
Essentially, the good results that you see, people get on it because they got major gut problems, major food intolerance, and the lab tests for the food intolerances are only 2 to 3% accurate. And they don't know anybody like me that tests a different way.
Okay.
So lab tests are crazily inaccurate along that line. A lot of lab tests. Like the lab test for Lyme disease, 0 to 20% accurate. If you can get a sample in the first 1 to 2 weeks of infection, after that, it has no relative accuracy whatsoever. That's according to the top Lyme lab, what they used to have on their website about a decade ago. Now they just say on their website that their tests are not a diagnosis. That's the top lab in the world, by the way. That's not some fly in the night backwards place. That is the top lab in the world.
No, I get that. And just for like the people viewing, what is Lyme disease and what does it like what are like the symptoms of it and what does it do to one's body?
Lyme disease is a fabricated thing that happened inside a lab, and when they released the JFK files,
Yeah.
that was in the JFK files to prove that. So Lyme disease is a combination of at least 5 infections. I've never seen one person with that with less than 6.
Oh man.
Okay, and I've seen hundreds. And what sets the stage is candida and a leaky gut with food intolerance. That's what
Yeah.
sets the stage. 75% of the immune system's inside of the gut. And when you got the gut full of pathogens like candida, it leaks like a sieve. Yeah, all kinds of autoimmune issues are going on. It's super toxic, and all of the energy of the immune system is tied up in the gut. So there's nothing to fight off anything else. So that's what sets the stage for Lyme disease to actually start to grow.
Okay.
Then it comes in by a multitude of different ways. They lie about a lot of things because they don't want to scare people. It's what I call a fluid transfer disease.
Yeah.
So anything that transfers fluid from an infected host to another one can move it. So
Okay.
spit, kissing,
Mm.
sharing a milkshake, sharing some food,
Yeah.
gnats, mosquitoes. They've followed the Lyme bacteria called Borrelia
Okay.
from a mosquito egg to the larva, nymph, still alive in the adult, ready to transfer as soon as it takes its meal. So
Oh,
there's a recent study that says it's only tick-borne. Not true. It's in the sexual fluids in men and women, crosses placental barriers. It's in breast milk. It's got every way that fluid
damn.
can move from one host to another will transfer. It's the same as STDs.
God, Jesus.
Yeah. And
That's
because it's fluid transfer, I always test everybody on all the issues of Lyme disease with
yeah,
STDs at the same time. People wonder why. Because you're talking about fluid transfer.
true. And you need
And
to be
yeah,
eh,
microbes don't adhere to our rules.
that's true.
They do.
They adhere to their own rules and their own
Yeah,
pathways.
right.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's
So,
insane because it's like there's no way you could avoid it. Like if somebody has it and they sneeze on you accidentally because of the fluid. And
yeah.
w- just a quick question, just for my own curiosity, does all right? Let's say the spit or somebody sneezes on you. Does it have to be like in an open wound or an open area, or like just skin contact would be able to like transfer the disease over?
Typically, it needs access to inside because
Okay.
they're not strong enough to bore through the skin.
Okay.
So that's why you got um, biting flies, gnats, mosquitoes, ticks. Those bore through the skin and they introduce it. Which, by the way, with tick bites, a lot of people just pull the ticks out. It's my own suspicion that when people squeeze a tick too hard, they squeeze the inside of the tick into them, and that's where they get sick. The right
No.
way to the right way to get a tick out is get a pair of pointed tweezers.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Twisto seal on all baggies look like?
Yeah.
You take that from the hinge side of the tweezers, and you wrap it around. So if you slide it to the belly, it'll hold the jaws closed. And you lightly clamp that onto a tick. You slide that slider down. You unscrew them.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense because you don't want to squeeze the insides of it back into the throat.
Absolutely not.
'Cause especially if it's an infected tick or an infected whatever
Yeah,
it could be.
you have no way of knowing. We can test
Yeah.
ticks. We do that all the time. But so Lyme disease is Borrelia is the Lyme bacteria.
Yeah.
It's like a corkscrew. And what they must have done in the labs is took syphilis, which is the most difficult disease ever known to man to deal with, and they hot rodded it
Yeah. Oh no.
really bad.
That's
And they
insane.
designed it so that it'll read your proteins and copy them to make like a snail shell of your own protein over the top, so your immune system won't even recognize it. And it only uses the bloodstream as a highway to move from one tissue to another. But our fastest swimming immune cell, called the macrophage,
Yeah.
the Borrelia bacteria swims twice as fast as a macrophage. And they made movies of that
Mm.
inside of blood vessels. And it's wild, the chase that goes on with all that. And the corkscrew could just screw itself right out of the blood vessel into the tissue. And the
I-
macrophage doesn't know where it went.
So
So that's what quote classic Lyme disease is. And almost all the tests are just the strain that came out of Lyme, Connecticut. It's
Yeah,
called Burgdorferi or B31 strain. The only place in the world we've seen the B31 strain come from is around Lyme, Connecticut. It's nowhere else in the country, and we haven't seen it in other countries. Other strains are pretty common, but they don't test those. We do, but the labs don't.
because I was about to ask if like the whole conspiracy theory behind Lyme disease, if it really was named after Connecticut. I was just about
That's
to ask
where
that.
they first recognized it started.
Yeah.
But it's, it's insane when you get into the history of that. When I first started working with Lyme disease, there were like 30 known strains. The last time I looked, there were over 300. There's 30,000 potential strains.
And what does treatment look like when somebody gets Lyme?
Well, let me talk about the other microbes that go with that.
Oh,
Okay,
let's get into it. Let's get into it.
yeah. So, along with that, you have Babesia. Babesia is a one-celled animal that climbs inside your red blood cells.
Ooh.
It gives malaria-like fevers. All of these give flu-like symptoms, just generic stuff. The Borrelia can give you a bullseye rash, maybe 20% of the time. There's no accuracy with that at all. The Babesia is more common than Borrelia. It's a stronger organism than the Borrelia. It causes way more symptoms, and commonly it is the primary infection. It's oftentimes there when there isn't Lyme with it. Just before I got on this call, we
Mhm.
just checked somebody who's been inundated with ticks, and
Oh no.
they picked up Babesia 3 weeks ago. We just found that
Oh
just a
shit.
few minutes ago. Just a few minutes ago. And they weren't surprised. They're carrying it. They go out to the lake, they get it, the dog brings it in. I mean, they got a lot of ticks. But that's not the only way it gets. So that's the second primary infection. Rickettsia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, is a small round bacteria that invades the lining of your blood vessels and the lining of your gut. Both those linings are only one cell layer thick. So it makes your lining your blood vessels rough. So the blood cells tumble when they go down instead of slide like a smooth slide. And in the gut, it makes your digestion even worse.
Oh no.
Then there's another small round bacteria that goes and invades your white blood cells, your immune cells, and
Yeah.
paralyzes them so they can't function. So that combination of those four is classically what we see in Lyme disease. The Candida is a yeast that can morph into fungus, that can morph into mold. So it's got four different forms. Its infection or overgrowth inside of the gut is what sets the stage for the immune system to be too beat up to deal with things coming in like Lyme
Yeah.
disease or anything else. And then there's another bacteria called H. pylori. They look like a squid. The tentacles that lives in your stomach, the tentacles screw in your stomach wall and it makes so you can't produce stomach acid. It's one of the biggest causes of reflux.
Yeah.
And it makes it so, since you can't produce stomach acid, it makes it so you can't digest your proteins. You need acid to digest your proteins. The acid that builds up in the stomach once the proteins leave, because oils are still there, is what makes the gallbladder pump out the bile
Yeah.
to be able to digest the oils. With low stomach acid, that doesn't happen. And without a high stomach acid, you can't absorb your minerals. It doesn't put them in the right form. So this H. pylori really messes things up in a huge way. You're not getting your nutrients. The candida makes it so your immune system's tied up.
Yeah.
And then any what's called an opportunistic infection, They're super strong,
Yeah.
but they couldn't grow if the immune system was functioning right. Our immune system's super, super, super efficient. It's better than like the Iron Dome that supposedly protects us.
Yeah.
It's a better system than that.
No, I know the human immune system, especially if you have it healthy, could keep you protected from a lot of ailments. But damn, I didn't think that Lyme disease had was that potent or that deadly.
Okay, so you asked how do they typically treat it?
Yeah.
So most people they can go to medical doctor. Medical doctor, if they believe you, and if they do a lab test, which takes a long time for it to come around with a 0 to 20% accuracy, if they believe that and they think you have it, they'll usually give you doxycycline.
Okay.
So, doxycycline, Harvard, uh, Lyme liaisons, the ones that run around and do education for hospitals and doctors and all that.
Yeah.
I've got a quote from one of their Lyme liaisons, Navina Zubsevek, who states that doxycycline doesn't kill Lyme bacteria. And we've known that for a long time. It's a high grade antibiotic. Antibiotics do nothing for parasites, so it doesn't do a thing for Babesia. It doesn't kill Lyme bacteria. It only hopes to slow it down so the immune system can deal with it. But within a couple hours of taking the doxycycline, you got a bunch of reactions that go on. One, it kills all the healthy microbes in your gut. So
Yeah.
when that happens, you no longer digest your food, you ferment it or rot it, and it lets all the pathogens grow, which is candida. You take 2 doses of that, your gut's a complete wreck. It takes at least 6 months of a very specific regimented working with somebody like me that knows how to deal with that to
Yeah.
repair your gut. Most believe you can never do it. I've talked to a lot of docs that say you can never do it. That's our specialty. And that's why we can have such a good impact with Lyme disease. So that's what most people do. And what it does to the, the microbes that make up Lyme disease is like if you walked up to a hibernating grizzly bear
Yeah.
with a baseball bat and somebody big like you swung as hard as you can, smacked that thing in the nose, and you stood there and you just tried to stare it down. What do you think had happened?
Oh, I'm gonna get swiped or bit, and it's
Yeah,
not gonna be good.
it would not be good. Well, what happens with all the microbes and Lyme bacteria? They interlace like a woven mat, like
Yeah.
multiple layers of cloth, and
Yeah.
then they leak out this matrix, kind of like a gelatin that hardens. It's called a biofilm.
Yeah.
The antibiotics can't penetrate the biofilm. The immune cells cannot get into the biofilm. It can stay, the research says it can stay in that biofilm for 17 years. We've seen it for double that, pretty close to double that. And you just paralyzed everything you need to be able to heal. You just destroyed your gut, destroyed your ability to digest food, get nutrients out of the food. You made pathogens. The candida makes a toxin called acetaldehyde. It's
Yeah.
7 times more toxic than embalming fluid, formaldehyde. 7 times.
God.
And you made that rise wholesale with an immune system that's already tied up with everything else. That spills out systemically and creates super autoimmune responses basically everywhere. So that's what most people do. And they can't understand why they can't get well.
Big question here. If if they know that just pumping a person full of antibiotics is just gonna destroy everything in its path, especially this high of a dose, why proceed with that procedure and not just you get where I'm going with get where I'm going
Yeah,
here?
you have the right question, and
Yeah.
it's the same question everybody should ask, but
So
nobody knows. They don't make it public knowledge that it doesn't kill this stuff.
then why even to use that treatment at all? Like I would
Why?
I would
Why?
figure
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So why even go to a doctor that doesn't know what they're doing? Now, I tell everybody, when you have something like this going on,
Yeah.
you need to go to a doctor and you need to ask them three questions in sequence, at least three.
Yeah.
First question. Okay, doc, for all the people that have what you think I have, what percentage of those can you make well and healthy again? I've been told I'm the only doctor in the world that answers that. And I've worked with thousands of people who've been all over the world to all kinds of specialists, world renowned specialists to local specialists to just a general doc of all professions.
That's crazy.
And I've never had one person that has acknowledged that they even thought of the question to ask,
You
but
bring up
no doctor will answer it.
a
I do.
great point because that's not a question most people would ask.
Yeah, the guy who manages putting my podcast up, we
Yeah.
did some interaction with him today, and he was asking about people that do what I do. So I gave him some names, and he looked up some of their podcasts, and he sent me a picture of one of them. And it's this guy who looks like he's death warmed over. His cheeks are all caved in. His skin doesn't look like it's got multiple colors or any life in it at
Yeah.
all. And I asked him, would you go to somebody like that and ask them for any kind of health advice? One of the top three natural docs in the world, very well
No.
known.
No.
And he goes, no, I wouldn't do that. Well, people don't think of that. But there's the other two are the same. One's face is always looks bright red and hyperinflamed because of the food intolerance that they have and the gut
Yeah.
dysfunction they have. And the other one looks like they're got one foot on the banana peel and the other one heading to the grave.
Nah, man.
Now
Nah.
you said something earlier, and it's really funny because I responded to the guy that posts my stuff.
Yeah.
He does the shorts and things like that. I do my podcast, I do my editing, send it to him, and he does all the other things. Anyway, he said something, and I said, people don't realize what I just asked. But
Yeah.
when you go to somebody that you need some health advice for, Jesus gives the greatest advice there is. He comes into a town close to where he grows up, and there's people that don't have any faith to be healed. And he looks at him and he goes, surely you'll quote me this proverb, physician, heal thyself. Now, I know top lawn docs, one of them has got all kinds of nervous twitches
Yeah.
from all the toxicity going on, and he looks like he's got Parkinson's. His head's just going, I can't watch him. I can't look at the guy. It just drives me absolutely crazy. You got other people with all of these signs of hormone dysfunction. Um, some are obese. They just don't look healthy. They don't
Not
look healthy at
understandable.
all. So that's the first question: is what percentage of the people that have what you think I have can you get healthy again? If they can't answer that, or if they pull the psych card and point a finger and try and guilt you, gaslight you is
Yeah.
what they're really doing. You just need to know you came into somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. You
Yeah.
just ask something over their head and you need to leave.
And then the craziest part about it is that most people, well, 99% of people, when they go to their doctor or they, go to the ER or seek medical attention, they never ask that question and they never think about asking that question because they believe that when they go to these people that they're gonna help them heal.
But you cannot get your health
Yeah,
restored in that system.
yeah,
You can get your symptoms reduced. But you take a look at pharmaceuticals, medicine,
yeah,
they disrupt biochemical pathways. We're back to our bioenergetics again. They disrupt biochemical pathways to try and reduce symptoms.
yeah.
Natural healing restores the biochemical pathways, which makes more sense.
Restoring the natural pathways, of course.
Right. So, so the second question
Yeah,
is, okay, if you can tell me a percentage, and the average doctor that people goes to see in every profession can only help 20 to 25% of the people that come in reduce their symptoms. That's it. And I, I, I heard that in school. I use a
yeah.
research on that all the time. And I couldn't live with myself
Damn.
interacting with people with a 20 to 25% success rate in reducing symptoms, not making them well, just reducing symptoms. We're 4 times that in restoring full health to the failures that have been for years to decades, to oftentimes the best known people in their
Mhm.
circle, sometimes in the world. So, after you get the sucking the wind of the doctor for the first question, if you ever get past that, and if they don't answer it, leave.
Yeah,
You're in the wrong place.
that's a big fact. That's a big fact because just just knowing that most doctors or at least general doctors only help restore health up 20 to 24 20 to
No, no,
25%.
no, no, no. They only reduce symptoms
Oh, excuse me,
in
only
20 to,
reduces.
yeah, that's
Oh,
not restoring health. That's reduced symptoms. And that's all the doctor professions. They all know this.
that's insane.
It
so
is.
so in your opinion, right, how would you reform the system?
Um, you have to do it through the education system.
Okay.
You just have to do it, and you have to kick the pharmaceutical industry out so you can actually teach doctors how to be doctors. People are lazy. What I
Yeah,
do takes a lot of brain power. It's exhausting. It's completely exhausting. It's rewarding to give people their life back. It's
I
really
believe that.
rewarding, but it's exhausting. And most doctors won't pay the attention for that. Like, we were in a continuing education program ongoing for a while. And how many months that was, I don't remember. But there were about 250 doctors in there of all professions. And some were just clinicians, but most of them were doctors. After that, somebody put a Facebook group together where these doctors could interact. And my wife was following that. I didn't have time. And she said, "Hey, they started a discussion on Lyme disease. You should jump in on this." I go, "I don't got time."
No.
They kept throwing things around. They're just stupid. I mean, just stupid. But somebody heard something and, oh, maybe we should try this. And they're all looking for the magic bullet. So after this conversation is going on with this 250 dogs, and there's a good 100 dogs in this conversation, my wife says, "You really need to jump on this." So I decided I had some time one day when she told me
Yeah.
that. I said, okay, just send me where that is. Okay. Pull that up. I got on there and I wrote, okay, here's a couple of published articles I do with Lyme disease. It's a big thing
Yeah.
that what we do. This is our success rate with Lyme disease. There's not magic bullets, but there's philosophies, there's
Yeah.
physiology and how the body interacts, and there's tools
Yeah.
that you got to put all of those together to be able to resolve this. Is anybody interested? Guess how many hands raised up and said, pick me?
That's true. And it's all, and
Guess how many people wanted to take me up on that?
I would say 1 to 7.
Zero. Not one response. Nobody even
That's crazy.
acknowledged I put the post on because it challenged them all too deeply.
Yeah.
And I didn't say it in a challenging way. What I just told you is basically what I put on there. It wasn't confrontation. It wasn't ripping into them. It wasn't telling them they're inadequate. It's, if you guys really want to do this, you need the tools.
Yeah. And you're
And
gonna need the time.
yeah, and I got the ability to transfer that. Not one person was interested.
That's crazy.
Mind blowing, isn't it?
I have like this one thing, several things in my mind, and the one thing that keeps popping out to me is that modern day doctors are taught not to take their time with their patients.
No, they're not
And
taught to not take the time. Insurance made that happen.
yeah,
Doctors used to be doctors and they used to have clinical skills. Now they're technicians that pass drugs. The
yeah,
insurance industry only allows them 6 minutes per patient visit. We had a head administrator in a top research hospital speak at a conference. And he said, okay, the typical doctor visit, the doctor has 6 minutes. He comes to your door, pulls out your file. Inside of seconds, he's formulated a diagnosis.
but
Inside, he's got a good idea on what he thinks it's going to be. In like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, he's got his diagnosis. Then he's going through his head what his treatment is going to be in like a minute. Then he opens the door, and the 5 minutes he's going to spend with you is all fluff because he's already decided what's going on.
I don't. That doesn't vibe with me because if I'm looking for healing, I'm looking, for hope with my health. I feel that my doctor or whoever I'm entrusting my health with should take their time to find all this out instead of just pumping it out in six minutes. And I know it's an insurance thing and it's a money funded thing, but it just goes against like what I believe medicine should be.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, but most people don't understand what I'm talking. They don't know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
but it makes a rubber kind of hit the road, and it's like, oh, so that's what's going on with all this.
That's so insane, man.
So, you asked earlier about diagnostic issues. One of the top functional medicine docs in the world, this is the way I approach things: functional medicine, functional wellness. The functional medicine is root cause and how to resolve that. The functional wellness is the lifestyle issues that are contributing factors. And not many combine those two because it takes too much time, too much energy. But you can't get anybody well without doing that. So
Yeah.
somebody that's got some problems, they go to the top functional medicine doc in the world. They order their standard order is 100 tests. They got add-ons on top of that. You come into me, we're 4.5 times that.
But the
Every
difference,
every every person that walks in, no matter what their complaint is, 4.5 times that.
but the thing about it is that what I'm seeing and the difference between you and everyone else is that you're taking the time, you're putting the effort, you're actually getting to the root versus the symptom.
Exactly. And you have to test that many things to figure out what's going on, how the body's interacting. As a for instance,
No, I got
the say a doctor suspects there's a liver problem, they'll
yeah,
typically order 2 or 3 liver enzymes. That's it. Your liver, it takes your amino acids and it assembles 80% of the amino acid chains that make your proteins,
yeah,
folds those into the proper shape, 80% of that, and sets those folds in the proper bioenergetic harmonic motion specific for humans. No other species has our frequency. We're the
yeah,
highest frequency of that. 80% of that happens inside the liver. It has two detox pathways. Phase one has 5 different ways it can do things. Phase two has 6. So
yeah,
on top of that, it's got immune function. It manufactures bile. It stores bile. It stores protein. It stores oils. It stores carbohydrates. It takes your amino acids and converts those into sugar when the adrenal tells it to do so. It's got 26 different functions.
and they're only testing 2 to 3 enzymes.
2 to 3 enzymes that are a guess at what's going on, where I test the 26 different functions.
That's that's insane.
It is.
That's
But
insane.
I do that because the people I see, that's the kind of evaluation they need. And my testing is not a medical diagnosis because I'm not using lab tests. I'm using bioenergetics. But I can find out what all these things are at a long distance. This was an amazing one. I share this story a lot, but
Yeah,
you'll see why. We had a girl who's she's 5 years old.
yeah,
She spent 5.5 days in a research hospital. She couldn't walk. She just laid in bed and cried. Five and a
mhm,
half days of doing tests, scans, and probing. At the end of 5.5 days, they called the parents in, said, "We have no idea what's going on. I think you should take your daughter to see a rheumatologist."
yeah,
A family member begged those parents to call me up and work with me. So they called me up, had them fill out some paperwork. We did a consult. We did evaluation late in the day. Figured out what was going on with that little girl inside of 2 hours. Everything they needed. Had her start on that. They had some of the product they needed. The next morning, she was out of bed. 3 days later, she's outside. 6 months down the road, she's healthier than she's ever been. She's born with some defects,
yeah.
healthier than she's ever been. She's over 1,000 miles away. I never saw her face to face.
Look at that, bro.
That's a common story with us. We had, I mean, I could just go on and on and
No,
on
no,
and on about stories like that.
it's just it's just mind blowing to think. And Dr. Brad, thank you. Like you really enlightened me on this and like how I should take like how serious I should take my own health and the type of people I need and want in my corner when I just want to be healthy and good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Wow, that's insane. And to think most of this is fueled by the insurance companies and the pursuit of the dollar versus actual care.
yeah, it's pathetic.
Yeah.
We had another person who we got a phone call. They'd been to world renowned specialists. Oh, and that young girl, she was hooked to one of the premier world renowned medical hospitals and another one that's well known across the country. And both of those are tied to medical schools.
Yeah.
And with all that, they couldn't figure it out. And I figured out 5.5 days of tests and scans and probes and all that. And I figured out 2 hours, 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, but look at the difference between the quality of treatment. You know,
It's huge. And that was
it's
all natural.
light years of difference.
It
You're
is.
taking your time. You're taking your time. You're not only analyzing what the standard testing would be, you're going above and beyond that, which should be the standard testing, going
It,
above and beyond.
it should, but the only reason I do the testing I do is because I've been studying physiology, how the body
Yeah.
works, for 40 years.
Yeah.
And I lovingly, teasingly poke other docs. If you can't understand what's going on, how are you going to help these people?
That's a big
That's
thing.
physiology.
That's a
You
big
got to understand what you're doing. You told me earlier you used to be a graphic designer. You understand what goes on inside of these programs to do stuff. You couldn't do that if you didn't understand it.
That's true.
And it becomes second nature once you do. It's not that I have this thing that I want to make a Guinness World Record on testing people.
No, I get that.
It's because people's conditions require that kind of analysis to find out what's going on to get them healthy again.
Yeah. And if the medical field were to take that time and do all that analysis, we would be a whole lot healthier and light years ahead of where we at now, I would say.
When I went through doctor school, there were two medical institutions in the whole country that had nutrition as an elective. RFK Juniors just made an agreement that they're going to require all medical doctors to have 40 hours. How much expertise do you think they're going to get in 40 hours of nutrition?
Barely beginner.
Right.
Barely beginner.
And, the doctor school I went to, a lot of our instructors came out of the medical school because the medical school said, you quit teaching the students such intense curriculum. You only need to teach them what they need to pass the boards. And the doctor said, the teachers, they were all doctors, looked at the medical school administration, said, no, they need to know all this information so they can be good doctors.
Yeah.
They moved over to the school I was at, and they were all there when I showed up. And I realized what they said is true. You have to know what's going on to be able to help people.
Yeah. That's extremely true now. And Dr. Brad, before I let you go, I have this one question that I ask all my guests. Do you have any advice, words of wisdom, or yeah, any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or advice for the roomies?
Um, yeah, yeah. The reality is that if you got a chronic health issue, you got to find a doc who's outside of the system to be able to help you. No doctor inside of the system will be able to. Functional medicine has the best tools, and that's where integrative medicine came from in their old world.
Yeah.
But the medical doctors seduced them into using their inferior tests, and they lost the ability to find root cause. You got to find somebody who's been around that has old world style of testing. And the people that train me have no idea what I do. No idea. It's extremely unique, just extremely unique. But our results You think about this, we've shared patients with docs for 40 years,
Mhm.
sometimes world renowned specialists. And one year we shared four different patients from world renowned specialists. In every case for 40 years, we beat them in evaluating what root cause is in the care and resolution of every single case for 40 years. And it's not likely to find a natural doc that can do that. If you got some health issues that are really going on, get a hold of me.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a better care. You're just not.
That's a big fact.
And the common thing that people say about our care is they got their life back. And that's a huge thing. That's not words I put in their mouth. There's a lot of people that come to us thought they were dying. There are several that said they would not be alive had they not come in to see us, and they all have
Mm.
their life back.
That's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. Roomies, when it comes to your health, make sure to find people that are going to take their time, that have your best interests at heart, and is not going to give you a cookie cutter explanation of things. Make sure to find people like Dr. Brad that's going to take their time and put their best foot forward for your health, and not only to cure the symptoms, but to cure the root cause. And with that, peace out.